Today is Wednesday, November 26th, and welcome to episode 10 of the In the Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Cain White. Good morning and happy Black Friday to you all, because you will be hearing this on Black Friday, though I'm recording this a couple days before Black Friday, the day before Thanksgiving. I'm super excited for the holidays, and I hope that you had a fantastic Thanksgiving. I hope that you have found things in life that you are thankful for, and whether it be something small or large, I pray and hope that everyone out there has something to be thankful for this holiday season. I hope that if you're out shopping on Black Friday, that you're being safe and away from all the crazy people that might be trying to punch someone over a big screen TV. I hope that that's not you. I hope that you're avoiding those things. And Black Friday shopping, something that I tend to stay away from, but everybody's got their own thing. And so they do have some pretty good deals on the Black Friday. So hope you're finding those good Black Friday deals, and I hope that you had a fantastic Thanksgiving. I've got a ton to be thankful for. It might sound egotistical or like I'm bragging, but boy, I've got a lot to be thankful for. And one thing this year and the past about year and a half of my life that I've really found out that I'm thankful for is God's timing. God's timing is always perfect. Even when you're struggling and you're asking God, why am I here? Why isn't this happening in my life? God's timing is always perfect. I think back to the spring of 2024, where I didn't know where my career was going to go or where my life was going to go. Was truly lost in my career and my life. And then 3 months later, I'm playing cornhole with Bobby Petrino in Sam Pippen's backyard. And then 3 months after that, I'm celebrating a win over number 3 Tennessee in Fayetteville on the field, coaching in one of the biggest upsets of the 2024 football season. And then only 2 months after that, I've got the Liberty Bowl trophy in my hand. And yeah, that may sound egotistical or bragging, but that just shows that God's timing is always perfect. And even if you feel lost or you feel like life's not going the way you want it, He's always got you right where He wants you. And that's what I'm thankful for this year, is God's timing and where God has put me in life right now. And the fact that I'm able to do this, to put something out on a platform of my own and to share God's love and to share funny stories and things like that. That's what I'm thankful for this holiday season. I recently decided that every 10th episode of the In the Huddle podcast, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to get out here and fly solo. And flying solo behind the mic's not the easiest thing that I've done in my life. It's got its challenges, but I'm going to sit here and talk to the camera and Santa Claus right here next to me for about the next 30 minutes. I feel like that the listener has been able to get in the huddle with multiple guests and learn a lot about a lot of different people. Well, I feel that I want you to be able to get in the huddle with me a little more and learn some things in my life that have really made me who I am and things that I've learned that have molded me and things that you may need to hear that could really send you to the next level. And so I'm going to be flying solo today. Every 10th episode, I'm going to tell a little bit of a life story or a section of my life, an era, if you will. Not like the Taylor Swift Eras tour. I'm not saying that I've got all these different crazy eras that I'll perform in front of 100,000 people, but I'm going to be telling different life stories and different parts of my life. And I feel it's only right to start with this one. And I'm not saying that this part of my life is the favorite part of my life or that's the part of my life that I'm most proud of, but it's an era of my life that I've got a lot of questions about. And I really have a lot of stories to tell about this part of my life. Multiple times I've been asked what it's like coaching the SEC. How cool is it? How much fun is it? And then I've been asked so many detailed questions. Well, today you're going to get the chance to get the full story. So welcome to episode 10 of the In the Huddle podcast, Coaching Life in the SEC. I feel like anybody that's gone through the public education system in the United States of America has probably answered this question at some point. What's your dream job? I remember in Justin Vinson's 11th grade AP English class, I remember there was a prompt that we had that was, what was your dream job? And I distinctly remember mine being, I want to be the linebackers coach at the University of Oklahoma. I want to go coach college football. What I didn't know at the time was how hard that really is to do, how hard it is to put yourself in a situation where you could be able to do that, especially for me starting my career coaching high school football. I'm not saying I'm speaking for everybody that coaches high school football in the state of Arkansas, but I do know a lot of high school football coaches that say, hey, I want to go coach college football someday. I said that at the beginning of my career. I said that time and time again. I'm going to go coach college football someday. What I did not know that I want to say roughly 95% of college football coaches, whether it be a head coach all the way down to the graduate assistant level or the student assistant level, either played college football or got their coaching career started at the college level. And so as I was going through my career, I would stay in contact with college coaches and ask them, what's that process look like getting to the college level? And I remember having a phone call with a assistant football coach at Air Force and him saying that it's really, really hard to jump from that high school level to the college level in terms of coaching. And I'd really almost given up on that college dream. I'd given up on coaching football at the college level until one day, I think you can just say right place at the right time. I'm at Waldron High School as the head football coach in the spring of 2024. I didn't really quite know where my career was going to go at the time. I didn't know if I wanted to continue to be a head coach at the time. I was away from my family, but Coach Scott Fountain, the special teams coordinator at the University of Arkansas, he recruited the Southwest Arkansas area, and he stopped by the school one day, and we sat in my office. Before we sat in my office, I distinctly remember opening the door for him and offering him a cup of coffee. I offered him a cup of coffee and he said, no, I'm good. And kind of glanced at me. And we sat in my office there at Waldron for about an hour and a half. And we just talked about football, talked about life, got to know each other. We didn't know each other until that day. We had never spoken in person, only over the phone a couple of times. And it was a great conversation. I didn't think a thing of it. Didn't think a singular thing of it. And what do you know, two weeks later, Coach Fountain gives me a phone call and asks me to come be a special teams assistant at the University of Arkansas. And what a insane moment that was in my head. It was almost shocking to get that phone call and get that offer. Is it because I offered him a cup of coffee? I don't know. I've still never asked him that question. Me and Coach Fountain are still close to this day. And I'll never be able to thank him enough for him giving me the opportunity to live the dream that junior in high school, he wrote on a piece of paper and said he wanted to go coach college football one day. And he gave me that opportunity. And Coach Fountain also pushed me to limits that I didn't know that I could go. He showed me that I was capable of more than I thought I was. And so I'll always be thankful for what Mr. Scott Fountain has done in my life. And so that's really the story of exactly how that happened. I know it's rare. And I'm so blessed to be a small number of high school coaches that get that college ball opportunity. Blessed to be able to say that I was just in the right spot in the right time. And kind of like I talked about in the intro, that was just God's timing. God had me right where he wanted me. He knew exactly what my path was going to look like. God's the wind that steers the sailboat. We can be the captain and kind of move where the boat goes at times, but the wind is going to push you in the right direction, and God is the wind that guides the boat in the right direction. So that's an inference that I make a lot. And I hope that made sense, but extremely thankful for getting that opportunity. And so I'll tell you what, I remember driving up to Fayetteville from Waldron thinking, I'm on easy street. All right. I've been a head high school football coach for 3 years. I've been under all this stress and making all these big time decisions. Well, now I'm just going to be an assistant, right? I mean, I've got this in the bag. Wrong. I was wrong. I'll admit it. Was not ready. Did not know the amount of detail and organization and all that it took to put together a college football program. Even though I was just a small fraction of the organization of the program, my goodness, do you have to carry a lot of weight at that level? I was not quite ready for what smacked me in the face right there during spring ball. Probably should have been. Probably should have consulted a few more people before I made the trek up Interstate 49 there to Fayetteville. But I tell you what, it was a huge learning curve, and I was I was wrong for thinking I was going to be on easy street. Um, I knew that God was going to test me pretty quickly, but I distinctly remember my first day. I remember rolling into the Fred W. Smith Football Center and there being a staff meeting. And this is after a spring ball practice. And so spring ball had already begun by the time I got there. And I remember that I was invited into that staff meeting. And you walk into this great big room and you look around, you see Sam Pittman, Bobby Petrino, Travis Williams, Deke Adams, Scott Fountain, all these great football minds. And Coach Pittman started the meeting by having me stand up and come to the front of the room and introducing me as the former head football coach at Waldron High School. Mentioned how my dad had coached high school football in this state for 30 years. And I remember my hands actively sweating, looking out into that crowd, knowing, wow, how cool is it that God has me in this space where I'm about to be able to learn from all these people who know more than I do. My mom always tells me it's so important to surround yourselves in rooms with people that know more than you do so you can learn and grow. And I think my hands were sweating, not because I was nervous, but because, wow, look at where I've been able to look at the situation that I've been put into. And so I distinctly remember that happening and being in the front of that room and thinking, wow, this is really cool. And so after that, we dived straight into spring ball, right? Like I said, the learning curve was huge. The speed of practice, the detail that goes into each and every practice in regards to special teams. I did not know that you don't just go out there and line up and kick the ball. You don't just go out there and line up and block a man and return the ball. There is so much detail that goes into the scheme. It's almost like an offense or a defense. Every person on that field has a different role, whether it be punt return, kickoff, or kickoff return. Did not know that grand detail went into the production of a special teams at the college level. And so it took a lot of long nights in the spring studying a thick playbook and learning what certain coaching cues mean and how to coach the right way at that level. That was probably the biggest learning curve in spring ball, is just catching up to the speed of it. And I was so used to controlling the tempo of my own practices as a head coach. And so speeding myself up to match the tempo of a college practice was a huge learning curve, and learning certain cues and terms that are used on special teams at that level was a big time learning curve. And I've still got that original book that I got day one, that original playbook. I still use it to this day, in the production of the special teams at Hoxie High School. And so studied that thing quite a bit during spring ball, and with the early mornings of spring ball and the late nights after practices, I was stressed and I was maybe a bit lost. I hadn't made any great friends yet, and felt like I was on an island a little bit, but really I wasn't. And one thing that happened that made me change my mindset was this. About a week in, Coach Travis Williams, who's the defensive coordinator at the University of Arkansas, late night, I was walking past the defensive staff room and he called me in and he said, I've noticed something about you. I've noticed that you're a magnet, that other people naturally want to be around you, and the personality that you have and the aura, that you've got God's love flowing through you. And so continue to be a magnet. And he mentioned that Gus Malzahn called him a magnet when he started coaching college ball. And Travis Williams did not have to do that. He did not have to give me that compliment or tell me that. He went out of his way to do that. And it really, really brightened my mood and my mindset going through spring ball. And so I'll always be thankful for Coach Travis Williams and what he said to me that day. And then I quickly learned that I really was not in this thing alone. That in the office, the graduate assistant analyst office there at the University of Arkansas, it's this one big long office where there's about 12 different computers, and you've got offensive support staff, defensive support staff, special team support staff. And I got to know all those guys really fast, and everybody was in it together. I mean, it was like a family in there. We called it the war room because we were always grinding in there. So much fun, so many fun stories out of that office. But I remember at the end of spring ball, it was the scrimmage before the spring game. So you've got the big grand spring game that you see on ESPN where teams are divided up in red and white. Well, on Saturdays, we had scrimmages to kind of replicate what the spring game would look like. And I remember reading the schedule the night before and thinking that I had to be in office really, really early. But I always gave myself an extra hour. So, my bad, Santa. Almost knocked the old Razorback Santa over there. I always give myself an hour before meetings started to prepare what I needed to prepare for the day. Well, I was actually 2 hours early on the day of the last spring scrimmage before the spring game. And I passed Coach Pittman in the hallway, Coach Sam Pittman, the head coach at the University of Arkansas at the time. And he asked me how I was going, went out of his way. And I told him it's been an adjustment. And I remember him distinctly putting his arm around me and saying, it's going to be a grind, but you were going to get so much satisfaction from this at the end of the season. You're going to learn so much, and you're going to be a better young man for it. And we went back and forth for about 2 or 3 more minutes. And then he proceeds to say, hey, has Taylor been to town yet? Speaking about my fiance at the time, now my wife, Taylor. I said, no, actually, Coach, she just rolled into town last night. And he said, well, after the scrimmage, if you don't bring her into my office so I can meet her, I'm going to fire your tail. And obviously he was joking, but took Taylor into his office after the spring scrimmage and spoke with him and his wife, Jamie, and me and Taylor were in there for about 10 minutes. And it was a really cool experience. And it just went to show that everybody's in this together. And the whole staff up there was so welcoming. And Coach Pittman really set that expectation for everybody to feel like family. Even though everybody's grinding and it's a business, coaching college football is an absolute business. It was still a family atmosphere. And that's something that I really loved. So after spring ball, finally got my feet under me. A new analyst comes in, and Chris Norris, which me and Chris Norris, we're not a lot alike, but in some ways we are. He is really stern. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's been in the college game for an extremely long time. He's been at Oregon, at Western Carolina, a lot of different places. So we worked hand in hand. And as we got to know each other, we spent some time together outside the office. And so we knew that going into this season that we had to be on the same page and we had to get to know each other a lot. We went to some college baseball games there in Fayetteville together. And Coach Norris is a very, very important part of the reason I'm where I am right now. He made me a better coach while I was there, and it made me a better man. And so, Coach Norris, I appreciate everything that you've done for me. Can't wait to see you this weekend, by the way. I'll be going up to Fayetteville to watch the Arkansas-Missouri game. So can't wait to see my guys up there. But we roll into camp season and recruiting season after spring ball, and that's hot and heavy too. That June, July period coaching high school ball, it's kind of it can be dead at times and you don't have a lot going on. Well, we roll right into recruiting and camps, and it's just hot and heavy every single day. And so learning how to manage my time and learning how to recruit was another learning curve. And, I tried to press in recruiting early and especially when we had recruits on campus, I didn't really know what it looked like or what I needed to talk about. And quickly, I just learned that I've just got to be myself. And that's what people still want. They want genuine personalities. They want real people. And so I didn't try to put on a front that I knew everything I was talking about. I was just a brand new college coach who had coached high school ball for 6 years. And here I am. And so I think that helped me in the recruiting side of things. And I got to meet some super cool people while recruiting, recruits, their families from all over, and still close with some of those today. And so there are days that we had camps all day long in the morning and the afternoon, and then we had recruiting events at night. And those are some long, long days, but those are the days that test you. And make you look at life and say, hey, if I can make it through a day like today, I can make it through anything, right? And that kind of helped me out when we got into the season with those long hours. I talked about it in the intro. We had a camp one day early in the morning, and I remember Coach Petrino was walking by my station that I was running at the camp, and he said, how's it going today, Cain? I said, oh, you know me, Coach. I'm just living the dream. Blessed as could be. And he goes, I just don't understand how you're so happy all the time. I don't get it. Dadgummit, living the dream. What does that even mean? And I didn't really know how to take it at the time, but I realized that he was joking. And that same night, we're at Coach Pittman's house, and we played some cornhole together side by side, and we talked for 15, 20 minutes, and just getting to pick brains of people like Coach Petrino. Man, what a blessing that was. I learned so much. But what I thought was I thought he was maybe mad at me for being overly happy, but Coach Petrino and I had a great relationship. I remember kind of fast forwarding a little bit, but my last day, or my second to last day at the University of Arkansas, we're in the Peabody Hotel getting ready for the bowl game. It was Christmas Day, and I was passing out special teams plans for practice in the offensive staff room there in the hotel. And he said, Cain, what are you doing in my office? And I said, Coach Petrino, I'm just doing my job. He said, are you still living the dream? And I said, absolutely, I am, Coach. Merry Christmas. He said, Merry Christmas, Cain. So it was a pretty funny little back and forth we had there. But man, Coach Petrino, I wish him the best. Man, we had a great relationship, and no matter what happens at the end of this season, if he continues on as the head coach or if the university goes in a different direction, I'll always be in Coach Petrino's corner and root him on wherever he is. But so after recruiting season and camp season, obviously you roll into fall camp, which is kind of a mirror of spring practice in a way. It's set up the same way. You're not really game planning for anything. You're kind of getting a feel of your team, but those were some long days too, because you had practices in the mornings, and then you had a walkthrough at night and staff meetings throughout the day. When fall camp started, that started 82 straight days that I worked in a row. And that was an absolute grind. I think that's the longest I've ever gone consecutive days of working in a row. And so that just goes to show you how tough it is on college coaches, how many days that they have to work in a row and still balance their family life and their love life. And so hats off to the guys that have done it for years and years and years, because that's not easy. Those guys that have raised great children and have a great family atmosphere and still put in that absolute grind through the season. Hats off to those guys. Until you've been in it, you truthfully don't know how tough it really is. So, like I said, fall camp started an 82 day straight work week. Ever had an 82-day work week? That's what I felt like I went on. And so fall camp, like I said, was set up long days. It's kind of a nonstop. And then you get into the season, and the season's set up a little bit differently. So you play on Saturdays. Depending on if it's a home game or a road game, depends on kind of when you get into the office on Sundays. I would say a rough estimate on Sundays, I'm in the office at 8:30. And then I might not leave until 1:30 or 2:30 in the morning on Monday. You've got a long day of straight game planning. You've got to game plan 6 different special teams units for the next opponent. And you've got staff meetings in between those. You kind of shut the door on the game prior and then open up the door to the next game. And so those Sundays were absolute grinds. And we got in that office, in that war room, like I said, and us 12 guys on the support staff, we would just get after it and come up with ideas on game plans, watch films, put together presentations for the coaches for the next day. Those Sundays were grinds. Not a lot of sleep on Sunday night into Monday morning. Monday morning, you're back in the office by 8:00, staff meetings, finish up game plan prep, and then you roll into practice on Monday afternoon. And then on Monday and Tuesday, you're in the office until 10:00 at night, no matter what, non-negotiable. And so Monday and Tuesday nights, you're watching film from practice, making adjustments to the game plan if needed. And then also all the while you're still recruiting, right? You're still making your recruiting calls and writing letters. and then you're getting ahead for the next week. And so there was never any downtime. There's never any holes in your schedule until your head hits the pillow on a nightly basis. On Wednesdays, set up the same. You're in the office by 8, staff meetings, and then you go to practice in the afternoon. Wednesdays and Thursdays, we actually got off after practice. And so that's the time you kind of take to continue working ahead or to kind of get yourself a little bit of rest. And that was kind of up to you. I usually spent Wednesdays. I stayed in the office a little bit longer to plan ahead for the next week. And then Thursdays, I was out of there right when practice was over. But those Thursday practices, I remember they were an absolute whirlwind because you have 2 10-minute periods of special teams. And so you've got 6 units to do in 20 minutes. And so one period you're in the punt period, and then you flip right over to punt return, and then you get a little bit of a break. Then you go kickoff return, and then field goal block. And so absolute whirlwinds on Thursdays, but that's how you have to prepare, right? Because there's so many scenarios in a college football game, and we got to get those in a timely manner. So the preparation piece on Thursdays, I remember, was really, really detailed and had a lot of stuff to print out for coaches to look at, because the special team staff, there's only 3 of us, right? You got the coordinator, you've got the analyst, and then myself, the GA. Well, offensive and defensive coaches also help in special teams. So you've got to make sure that they're on the same page as well. So you're making plans not only for the special team staff, but for really the entire staff. And so Thursdays is a lot of just making sure practice diagrams, the game plan was all in the same packet, I guess you could call it, and making sure that was dished out to every coach on staff. And so once you got past Thursday, it was downhill a little bit. Friday, you have a big special teams meeting, and then other team meetings. You have a walkthrough, and then you either travel or you travel to the hotel if you're playing at home. And so Friday nights, you kind of got to relax just a little bit before, the big show on Saturday. And I struggled a little bit. I was vulnerable. I couldn't do it all alone. And there were days that I struggled, but I had so many guys in that room and on staff that they were always there ready to help, whether it be physically, getting things ready for practice, mentally or emotionally. Think about Dylan Cruz and Will Kennedy, Sean Fogarty, Trey Fitch, Armani Linton. I could go down a list of guys that were always there ready to help. But you roll into Saturday and the big show, man. I always told myself that if I can make it to Saturday, I'll be all right. That was the story I ended up telling myself every week. If I can make it to Saturday, I'll be okay. Because Saturday is what makes coaching at that level worth it. I remember my first game as a college coach at War Memorial against Pine Bluff. I'm stressed out to the max because I want to make sure everything goes smoothly. And I remember Dylan Cruz, who was one of my roommates in Fayetteville. He was an offensive analyst, and we're still extremely close to this day. We had a hug at the 50-yard line right before warm-ups, and it was just a warm embrace, and him essentially telling me in that embrace that, hey, I've got you. We're all in this thing together. And it was exactly what I needed. And I knew in that moment that I had somebody that I could always lean on. And so many guys, the guys that I listed earlier. But that embrace with Dylan Cruz right there at the Pine Bluff game, that's one thing, a small thing that really got me through. And Dylan, I want to thank you for that, man. You have no clue what that meant to me right before that game. And so we beat UAPB, shut them out 70-0. That was a cool first game to be a part of. A lot of special team substitutions in that game, so it was kind of hectic. And then we roll into Oklahoma State the next week, and wow, my first road game as a college coach, the atmosphere at Boone Pickens Stadium was off the charts. We led a lot of that game and ended up losing in double overtime. And I remember that feeling in the third quarter, wow, it's going to be really cool after we win this game, and we didn't get the job done. And that bus ride back from Stillwater was not as enjoyable as I thought it was, but it was extremely loud. And if you ever watched a game on TV, an Oklahoma State game, the stands are extremely, extremely close to the field. The bleachers, you do not have a lot of sideline room, and it's set up that way for a reason. It makes it a tough environment to play in. And so, that's a game that was rough, that we should have won, but it was a game that I enjoyed. My first road game as a college coach, that atmosphere was pretty crazy. And so, I think of other big time moments. Me and Will Kennedy, we still talk about this one to this day. We put that eagle back in his cage, that war eagle. We put him back in his cage when we went to Auburn, beat Auburn on the road. That was my first game in the SEC as a college coach, and that was a fantastic game and another atmosphere that was really, really good. I'd been to Auburn before, but being on the sidelines in that game was just a whole nother level. Other games that come to mind. I think my most humbling moment, and the moment that I physically had to stop and make myself be in the moment. Because that's one thing that I did not do very well as a college coach. I was always so busy and stressed and put stress on myself that I did not sit still and be in the moment enough. But this was one moment that I forced myself to physically look around and breathe in the moment. And that was when we played Texas A&M at AT&T Stadium at Jerry World. And I remember walking out onto the field, went to the 50-yard line and just looked around and breathed it in. And I just thanked God. I prayed right there, and I thanked God that he put me where he had me. An extremely humbling moment. And I guess that was maybe like, wow, I've made it moment. Never thought in a million years that I would coach in a football game at AT&T Stadium where the Dallas Cowboys play, and have a locker in the locker room at AT&T Stadium that had my name on it. That was just, I thanked God so many times that day. That was a really cool experience. And, I think one thing that I look back on, another reason I'm so thankful is I got to create memories for those around me. My beautiful wife and my mother-in-law came to the game there at A&M. My good friend, Christy Neal, and her son, Bry, who I coached at Manila, they came to the game. And so getting to see them after the game was an awesome experience. And so I think that's why I'm the most thankful, is the memories that I got to help create for those around me that I love. And so that was maybe the coolest part of coaching college ball. Another game that comes to mind, obviously, is the Tennessee game. That day was absolutely awesome. That day, I wish I could go relive that one 100 times over. Number 3 Tennessee comes into Fayetteville. We're underdogs. We beat them right there at the end. And I remember at the end of the game, it was a certain situation where there was no chance that we could go back on special teams in the game. We were up by 5. They had the ball with 7 or 8 seconds left, whatever it was. There was zero chance that special teams was going to be in the game anymore. And so I remember being on the sidelines, and I took my headset off and allowed myself to listen to the crowd and kind of be in that moment as almost a fan. That was another time that I really decided to take it all in. And when we ran the quarterback there from Tennessee out of bounds, and the crowd rushed the field, which was absolutely terrifying, by the way. Absolutely terrifying. It felt like a wave hit me. I'm standing in the ocean, and a wave just smacked me in the back. When all those fans ran onto the field, it was chaos. I remember clenching onto my headset thinking, please don't let anybody steal it. I've got people that I've never seen in my life taking selfies with me, celebrating. That was really cool. But the best part of that is when I come out of the locker room after the game and seeing all of those around me that I love so much, family, friends. There's so many pictures that I've got from after that. So many warm embraces. That was the best part of that win over Tennessee, is just seeing all of my people right there and feeling the love and the support that I had from everybody that was there that day. And if you were there that day in support of me, thank you so much, because you have no clue what that meant to me. That you were there for that really cool moment. We go to Missouri a few weeks later. And before I tell this story, since I was about 5 years old, really earlier than that, maybe 3, I've loved the movie Rudy, and there's a clip in that movie where they're playing in the snow. There's a game at Notre Dame in the snow. And since the first time I watched that when I was a wee little kid, I wanted to play a football game in the snow. Obviously, I never got that opportunity since I didn't play past the high school level. And very rare that you see a high school football game in Arkansas played in the snow, if ever. If you're listening to this and you've played in a snow game at the high school level in Arkansas, please let me know. I would love to hear where that was, and that would be cool to hear. But I thought maybe one day I'll get to coach in a game in the snow. And throughout the week, everybody's talking about, oh my gosh, it's going to snow. That's going to be miserable. And I was like, what? I'm pumped. Let's go. I hope it snows 7 inches. I pray that it snows. I want to be able to coach a game in the snow because I always wanted to play in the snow. And sure enough, it did. It's like 22 degrees. It snows so hard in Columbia, Missouri that morning. We get to the stadium, and in my little area of the locker room of, options to choose of what I would wear during the game, there's, big time winter coats and long sleeves. And I said, you know what? I'm going to be in the experience. I'm going to go in short sleeves. And maybe that wasn't the smart decision. My hands got really cold. I think I still might get a little shiver to this day, but coached the game in short sleeves. And, that's another game that we had right there in the bag and couldn't quite pull it off. Man, I wish we had won that one. I remember the student section was throwing snowballs at our guys. It was nuts, man. And I think I mentioned it in a podcast a few episodes ago that the atmosphere at Faurot Field in Columbia, Missouri is really good. And so if you ever get a chance to go to a game there, please do. That was a super cool experience. And so we finished the season 6-6. We're bowl eligible, there for about a week. There's all this talk about where we're going to go play in the bowl game. And I knew exactly where I wanted us to play. Selfishly, I wanted it to be in Memphis. I wanted to coach in the Liberty Bowl, and I wanted to be able to be close to home because I knew that I was done. I'd already, made the decision that I was going back to high school ball, and I wanted to be close to my family on that last college game that I coach in, and thank the Lord that we got the bid in the Liberty Bowl against Texas Tech. And that whole week, that experience in Memphis was awesome. You're in the Peabody Hotel, which is one of the most grand hotels that there is, and you're in meetings there, and it's more of a laid back atmosphere, but you know that there's still a job to do, and you still got to go win a ball game. And so, I talked about this in episode 9, 2 nights before the bowl game. I told the guys in the specialist room that I was leaving, and right after that, the kids could have gone and done whatever, but Devin Bell and Ashton decided to come up to my room. We just sat and talked for, I want to say, close to 3 hours, and got to know each other even more than we already did. And that was almost like a cherry on top for my experience. And to be able to just sit there with those guys and share life stories and laughs. I'm always going to be thankful for that moment in the Peabody Hotel. And like I said, that whole bowl experience, there was, I think, Christmas Eve, my mom and Taylor and my little brother came over to Memphis, and we hung out there in the Peabody for a little bit. And so nice not being home for the holidays, but being close enough that where my family got to come see me. I was extremely thankful for that. And of course, you go out in the Liberty Bowl, and we put it on an absolutely dominant performance to beat Texas Tech, who is a team that's probably going to go to the college football playoff this year. We hand them a big time loss, and I get to hold the Liberty Bowl trophy and be on the field for the celebration. And I just remember once again feeling overly blessed, and being in that moment was once in a lifetime. And that really just capped it off. And that was the rewarding feeling of all the late nights and the early mornings and not a lot of sleep throughout the season. That it was worth it. for that moment and to be able to share it with, once again, a bunch of loved ones that came to the game. And so, got a ring to show for it. I guess that's pretty cool too. Hopefully I get some more rings in my career, but that's a pretty cool first ring to have. And so that's really the story. That's the story of coaching in the SEC, of coaching at Arkansas. And to wrap this up, I've had this on my mind for a while. Throughout the entire process, I asked God, why? Okay, why am I here? There's got to be a reason. Who am I impacting? In what way am I impacting them? In what way am I bettering God's kingdom? And I found out when all of my friends and family started coming to the games that okay, I'm creating experiences for them, or helping create experiences for them. And so that was one thing that pushed me through. But I didn't get that full closure of the impact I was making until after it was over, until after I was back at the high school level. And so many young men that I coached still reaching out to me, still checking in on me, still talking to me, some of them on a daily basis. And that gave me that closure of, okay, maybe I did make a little bit of an impact while I was there. Maybe I did affect some lives in a positive way. And I pray to God that I did. And that's why I feel I was put on this earth, is to just maybe make the world a better place wherever I am. And so the guys that have reached back out to me since I've left, guys like Devin Bell and Ashton Noe, who you've heard from on this podcast, guys like Max Schmidley, who was a long snapper for us, guys like Gavin Rush and Scott Starzik that I recruited and that now play at the University of Arkansas, guys like Dallas Young, who played fantastic for us on special teams, who's now at the University of South Alabama. He's reached back out to me. Aiden McCowan, who's playing fantastic cornerback at Nicholls State this year. Landon Phipps and Caleb James, who have gotten a bunch of special team snaps this year at Arkansas. The young man himself, Donovan Witten from Arkadelphia, Arkansas, who got put on full scholarship. And then from right here down the road, Riker Acebo from Jonesboro, Arkansas. You know, you guys that have reached back out to me since I left, it's made me feel appreciated, and truthfully made me feel like that I've maybe made a small impact on your lives, because everybody that I named and more, you've affected mine. You've changed my life in specific ways. I could stay on here and tell stories about each one of those guys and how they've affected my life in a positive way. And so thank you, guys. I love every single one of you. Thank you for continuing to reach out. And I'm rooting every single one of you on for the rest of your life, and in football and in marriage and fatherhood. I'm rooting you on, guys. And so thank you for making me feel welcomed and for making me feel appreciated during my time at the University of Arkansas. I know that was a lot. And I felt like I got a lot off my chest, and I felt like maybe there were some questions that were answered. That was an era of my life that I'll never forget and that I'll always be thankful for. So hopefully you learned something tonight. Hopefully that you're going to learn more from this podcast in the future. So until next time, we'll see you later.